Hello everyone, welcome to my Evil Within 2, Akumu difficulty, no upgrades, no keys walkthrough, and this is chapter 10, Hidden from the Start. And I'm finally resuming this walkthrough after so long, with the likes of Resident Evil 3 Remake and The Last of Us Part 2 causing me to put a lot of delays on this walkthrough and also with other things. It's really made it difficult to actually get a video out for this walkthrough, but given that we've now entered a brief hiatus where we won't really be seeing any big games releasing until the advent of the PS5, it's allowed me to start pushing this walkthrough out. So I think I'll definitely be releasing each video of this walkthrough a little bit more consistently now that I've covered the bigger games of this generation so far. And right now we are inside of a very big encounter, and this is a wave-based system similar to Chapter 6 of the first Evil Within, where you're inside that burning house. And there are only 2 waves to that section, but this one, there's 5 waves. And the enemies are very aggressive on this part, so I highly recommend you use the shotgun against them. You'll get back a lot of shotgun ammo in the later chapters. I mean, you still need to be very careful whenever the enemies are getting near you, because you have to time your iframes properly so that they don't grab you. And this right here, whenever an enemy grabs Torres and you go into this animation, you are completely invulnerable. And oh, shoot. That was a transition just then. I apologize for that. That was not something I edited out. That was PlayStation's fault, which I'm amazed that transition happened just then, because I have my video settings set to the lowest setting. And also, this game isn't as high octane with the graphics like Uncharted 4 is, which is why I was getting a lot of transitions in Uncharted 4. But apparently, in this one, I just got a video transition. Whatever, we'll make do with it. Right now, Torres has gone down, and this is a really good design choice. I'm glad that the AI can't fully die. If you remember Joseph from the first Evil Within, he was absolutely horrendous. He was so poorly programmed on that game, and he went down a lot if you weren't specifically trying to focus on having his back. It was really frustrating. Like, he could not kill enemies very efficiently. His weapon did very little damage, and he would oftentimes spend more time running around than actually shooting the enemies, because anytime an enemy got close to Joseph, he would always run away, and the enemies were significantly faster than Joseph, so there was never really a moment where Joseph could ever fight back, and that just made it easy for the enemies to kill him so quickly. And he was just a completely useless AI, and the fact that he could die was really stupid. So I had voiced to Tango Gameworks on one of their trailers for this game that having to defend a completely useless AI companion takes away from the survival horror aspect. It makes you not appreciate what's happening, and it just leads to more frustration than actual fun gameplay. And I'm really glad that Tango Gameworks decided to take that criticism into account, so they made it where Torres is a lot more active when it comes to killing the enemies, and she doesn't run away. She actually fights back with her melee attacks. And also, she can't die, so anytime she loses her health, she will go into a down state, but you are able to revive her. And if you're not wanting to deal with Torres, you can just leave her downed, so that it's easier for the enemies to prioritize you, and it makes it easier to actually shoot them. Because there's no telling whether the enemies are going to prioritize you or Torres. So having that option is really nice. And you'll notice right there, that was a hysteric. The hysterics are so dangerous in combat. This is one of the few moments where you have to actually encounter a hysteric in a mandatory combat encounter. And be very careful of their counterattack animation whenever you make them flinch. That's the most dangerous attack they have, and there's no telling whether they're just going to stop after they do their initial startup frames for the animation, or they're going to continue their run. That unpredictability makes them very dangerous, but I've gotten rid of her, and now we have this final wave right here, which is a bunch of spawn and a bunch of lost. I always use the shotgun against the spawn because that's the best way to make them flinch, and then you can hit them while they're recovering from the animation, and now they are dead. And the good thing about this section is the enemies constantly drop ammo, so you will always have a lot of pistol bullets for this encounter. You're free to use your bottles here as well, because when we get back into Chapter 13, or Chapter 11, if you choose to not initiate Chapter 12 immediately, you can just go around Union and just pick up some more bottles. It's very handy. But I'm not going to transition over to the next encounter, which is a stealth encounter. And this is where I really appreciate the AI in this stealth encounter, because you will not clip on your AI companion whatsoever, and they will also not be spotted by the enemies until you yourself get spotted. This is something that I really wish Naughty Dog had inherited, or at least made a standard with their AI. I mean, in the first Last of Us, Ellie could not be detected by the enemies, but you clipped on her a lot, and she just moved around all over the place, and it was very easy to mistake Ellie's footsteps for an enemy's. And then The Last of Us Part 2, while they did make a lot of improvements to the AI systems, a lot of the real niggles in the systems in the first Last of Us kind of returned in the second Last of Us, but it was only noticeable in one encounter for me, and it was in Seattle Day 1 of Ellie's section, when you were in the school. Because the school sequence is incredibly annoying when you're trying to do it stealthily, and you're not trying to kill the enemies so quickly so that you can just retreat back into a stealth profile. Because Dina just was such a pest in that encounter. She kept stealing my cover because they forgot to put in the whole mechanic where you could share your cover spot with an AI. And they had this mechanic in the first Last of Us, but they neglected it in the second Last of Us. And then the times where you would be moving around trying to keep out of sight from the enemies, like, Dina just pushed you around because she was just moving around freely, and it was so annoying in that encounter. Well, on this game, none of those issues exist. So in this stealth encounter, and this is the only stealth encounter in the game where you're actually with an AI companion, you will not clip on Torres, and she will also not be spotted by the enemies unless you yourself get spotted, and that is really good design. It helps ensure that your AI companion isn't going to be a wild card when it comes to affecting the flow of these stealth encounters. It's good that they don't make it where you're with an AI companion all the time, or just have a lot of these moments where you're with an AI companion like they did with the first Evil Within, because then these sections flow nicely. And right now, I'm taking the time to do this entire stealth encounter. You can just run for the door and just skip all the enemies, but it does take a little time for the enemies to lose you. But there are bushes near the door that you can use to lose sight of the enemies. And once they've lost you, you're free to open the door. Like, when Torres goes near the door, you can press X on her, and it allows you to open the door. And you only need to kill 3 enemies in this encounter. This one right here, this part of the stealth encounter was kind of tricky to figure out because I kept getting spotted by that guy, and I was also getting spotted by the other one behind me. But when you do this pattern correctly, you will have no trouble with the sequence. Thankfully, these enemies do not have any kind of turning animation, like in The Last of Us Part 2. And there's also a sniper rifle ammo pouch inside of this truck right here. So before you go for the door, make sure you pick it up. And this pretty much concludes Chapter 10. And I know I said before in Chapter 9 that I was going to combine Chapters 10 and 11, given that these are very short chapters, but given how long it took me to get this video out, I've decided to just release Chapter 10 on its own. But when Torres is over here, you are able to go inside the safe room, and here's an opportunity to pick up a freeze bolt, which I don't know why the freeze bolts are introduced so late into the game, because in Chapter 5 of the first Evil Within, you got access to the freeze bolts. And now they've made it where you get it in Chapter 11, and there's 17 chapters in this game. Just seems very odd to me. But this is the end of Chapter 10. Stay tuned for the future parts. Thank you all for watching, and you take care now.